This audiobook is titled, Why You Feel Emotionally Exhausted. Because if you often feel emotionally exhausted without knowing why, if small things overwhelm you more than they should, and if pressure seems to drain you faster than it drains others, there is a reason for that. Emotional overload is not weakness. It is a signal that your inner system is overstimulated and undersupported. Once you understand how this system works, you can begin to change it. Introduction. Most people believe that emotional control means hiding feelings, ignoring stress, or forcing themselves to stay positive. They think calm people are simply born that way, naturally relaxed and emotionally strong. But this belief is inaccurate. Emotional stability is not a personality trait, it is a learned skill. Every emotion you experience is the result of a biological and psychological process. Your nervous system receives information, evaluates it for danger or importance, and produces a physical and mental response. This happens in fractions of a second, often before you are consciously aware of it. By the time you notice that you are angry, anxious, or overwhelmed, your body is already reacting. In this audiobook, you will learn how emotional triggers work, why pressure disrupts performance, how to create distance between yourself and intense feelings, and how to return to balance quickly. You will learn how to remain grounded in conversations, focused under stress, and composed in difficult environments. This is not about eliminating emotion. Emotions are essential. They provide information, motivation, and connection. The goal is not to become emotionless. The goal is to become emotionally intelligent. Chapter 1. The Emotional Trigger System. Every emotional reaction begins with a trigger. A trigger is any internal or external event that activates your nervous system and signals that something important is happening. It can be a comment, a facial expression, a tone of voice, an unexpected message, a mistake, a memory, a deadline, a loss, or even a thought. Most triggers are small and ordinary, yet the emotional response they produce can feel intense and overwhelming. This happens because your brain does not evaluate situations objectively. It evaluates them based on meaning. When something occurs, your mind immediately asks, often unconsciously, is this dangerous? Is this threatening my status? Is this threatening my security? Is this threatening my relationships? Is this threatening my self-image? The answers to these questions determine your emotional response. If your brain interprets a situation as safe, you remain calm. If it interprets it as risky, uncertain, or humiliating, your emotional system activates. This activation is fast and automatic. It does not wait for careful reasoning. It is designed for speed, not accuracy. Its purpose is to prepare you for action, not reflection. When a trigger is detected, the nervous system releases stress hormones that change how you think and feel. Your heart rate increases, your breathing becomes shallow, your muscles tighten, your attention narrows, your mind shifts into survival mode. In this state, you become more sensitive, more defensive, and more reactive. Neutral situations may feel hostile. Small problems may feel overwhelming. Simple feedback may feel like criticism. This is why people often react strongly to situations that seem minor in hindsight. In the moment, their nervous system was activated. They were not responding to reality as it was. They were responding to how it felt inside their body. Personal history plays a major role in shaping triggers. Past experiences teach your brain what to watch out for. If you have been criticized, rejected, ignored, betrayed, or embarrassed in the past, your mind becomes alert to similar situations. It learns to associate certain tones, expressions, or scenarios with danger. When those patterns appear again, even subtly, your emotional system reacts as if the past is repeating itself. For example, a simple disagreement may trigger fear if past conflicts led to loss. A neutral comment may trigger anger if previous criticism caused pain. A delay in response may trigger anxiety if abandonment was experienced before. These reactions are not signs of immaturity. They are learned protective responses. Another powerful influence on triggers is fatigue and overload. When you are tired, stressed, hungry, overwhelmed, or emotionally drained, your tolerance decreases. Your nervous system becomes more sensitive. Situations that you would normally handle calmly begin to feel unbearable. Emotional reactions intensify, not because the situation changed, but because your internal resources are low. Social environments also amplify triggers. Competition, comparison, authority figures, public evaluation, and unstable relationships increase emotional sensitivity. When your sense of belonging or competence feels threatened, your brain reacts defensively. This can appear as anger, withdrawal, people-pleasing, or excessive worry. Most people believe their reactions are caused by other people or circumstances. They say, "They made me angry," "That situation stressed me out," or "This problem ruined my mood." In reality, situations activate internal systems that already exist. The trigger is external, but the reaction is internal. Understanding this is the first step toward emotional mastery. When you realize that emotions are generated by interpretations and nervous system responses, not by events themselves, you stop feeling powerless. You begin to see that between what happens and how you respond, there is a space. In that space, choice becomes possible. You may not be able to control which triggers appear. Life will always contain uncertainty, pressure, and conflict. But you can learn to recognize activation early. You can notice physical tension, mental narrowing, and emotional intensity as signals rather than commands. You can pause before reacting. You can slow your breathing. You can shift your posture. You can ground your attention. These small interventions interrupt automatic patterns. They create room for clarity. With practice, you become familiar with your personal triggers. You know which situations activate you. You know when your tolerance is low. You know when your mind is likely to exaggerate danger. This self-knowledge gives you power. Instead of being surprised by your reactions, you anticipate them and prepare for them. Emotional intelligence begins here, not with suppression, not with denial, but with understanding. Chapter 2: Pressure and Performance. Pressure changes how you think. When you are relaxed, your mind is flexible. You can consider different perspectives, weigh options, listen carefully, and respond thoughtfully. You're able to see nuance. You tolerate uncertainty. You adapt. In this state, your intelligence and emotional awareness work together. Under pressure, this balance disappears. Stress activates survival systems in the brain that were designed for physical danger, not complex decision-making. When these systems turn on, your body prepares for threat. Your heart beats faster. Your breathing becomes shallow. Your muscles tighten. Blood flow shifts away from areas responsible for reflection and toward areas responsible for action. Your mind becomes focused on immediate outcomes. This creates a narrowed state of awareness. In this state, you see fewer options. You think in extremes. You become more rigid. You focus on avoiding loss rather than creating success. You become sensitive to perceived threats and resistant to new information. Even intelligent, experienced people begin to make impulsive or defensive decisions when pressure is high. This is why people often say things they later regret during arguments. It is why professionals sometimes freeze during important presentations. It is why athletes underperform in critical moments. It is why leaders make poor choices during crises. It is not because they lack ability. It is because stress temporarily limits access to their full mental resources. Pressure also distorts perception. When you are stressed, your mind exaggerates consequences. Small mistakes feel catastrophic. Temporary setbacks feel permanent. Minor criticism feels devastating. Uncertainty feels dangerous. The future appears threatening and unpredictable. This distortion intensifies emotional reactions and reinforces reactive behavior. At the same time, stress weakens impulse control. Normally, there is a brief pause between feeling and acting. That pause allows you to evaluate whether a response is appropriate. Under pressure, that pause shrinks. Reactions become faster and less filtered. You may interrupt, become defensive, withdraw, or become overly compliant without intending to. Afterwards, you may wonder why you behaved that way. This pattern creates a painful cycle. You react poorly under pressure. You regret it. You lose confidence. You become anxious about future situations. You feel more pressure next time. You react even more strongly. Over time, this cycle damages self-trust and emotional resilience. Another effect of pressure is mental overload. When stress is constant, your mind remains in alert mode. It does not fully recover. Background tension becomes normal. Your nervous system loses flexibility. You become easily irritated, impatient, and emotionally exhausted. In this state, even small challenges feel overwhelming. Many people attempt to manage pressure through distraction, avoidance, or emotional suppression. They ignore stress signals, push through exhaustion, and pretend they are fine. This may work temporarily, but it weakens long-term resilience. Unprocessed stress accumulates and eventually erupts through burnout, anxiety, or emotional collapse. Emotional mastery requires a different approach. Instead of fighting pressure, you learn to regulate it. The first step is recognizing early signs of overload: tightness in the chest, shallow breathing, racing thoughts, irritability, mental urgency, loss of patience. These signals indicate that your system is moving into survival mode. When you notice them early, you can intervene before performance declines. Breathing is one of the fastest regulation tools. Slow, deep breathing sends a message to the nervous system that you are safe. It reduces stress hormones and restores mental clarity. Posture also matters. Standing or sitting upright improves confidence and emotional stability. Physical alignment influences psychological state. Attention management is equally important. Under pressure, your mind tends to fixate on worst-case scenarios. Deliberately redirecting attention to immediate tasks, physical sensations, or objective facts reduces emotional amplification. It brings you back into the present. Preparation and structure also reduce pressure. When you have routines, checklists, and clear priorities, fewer decisions must be made under stress. This preserves mental energy and prevents overload. Calm performance is supported by good systems. Over time, practicing these skills changes your relationship with pressure. You stop fearing it. You see it as a signal to slow down. Ground yourself and respond deliberately. Instead of collapsing under stress, you stabilize. Instead of reacting impulsively, you remain composed. This is the foundation of emotional strength. In the next chapter, you will learn how to create distance between yourself and intense emotions so that feelings no longer dictate your behavior. That is what we will explore next. Chapter 3: Emotional Detachment. Emotional control does not mean suppressing what you feel. It does not mean pretending that anger, fear, disappointment, or frustration do not exist. Suppression creates internal tension. Denial creates confusion. Avoidance creates long-term instability. True emotional mastery comes from learning how to experience feelings without becoming consumed by them. Most people are emotionally fused with their reactions. When anger appears, they become angry. When anxiety appears, they become anxious. When sadness appears, they become discouraged. There is no separation between the emotion and their sense of self. The feeling feels personal, permanent, and powerful. It defines the moment and often shapes behavior. Emotional detachment is the ability to create healthy distance between yourself and what you are feeling. It means recognizing that emotions are temporary, internal states, not identities. You experience anger. You are not anger. You experience fear. You are not fear. You experience disappointment. You are not disappointment. This distinction changes everything. When you are fused with emotion, it controls your attention, language, posture, and decisions. When you are detached, you remain grounded while the emotion passes through you. You acknowledge it without surrendering to it. You allow it without amplifying it. You observe it without judging it. This ability begins with awareness of physical sensation. Every emotion has a bodily signature. Anxiety tightens the chest and stomach. Anger creates heat and tension. Fear accelerates the heartbeat. Sadness creates heaviness. When you focus on these sensations instead of the story around them, you shift out of mental escalation. You anchor yourself in direct experience. This reduces emotional intensity. Language also plays a powerful role. The way you describe feelings influences how strongly they affect you. Saying, "I am angry," strengthens identification. Saying, "I am feeling anger," creates distance. Saying, "I am overwhelmed," reinforces helplessness. Saying, "I am experiencing stress," preserves agency. Subtle changes in language reshape emotional experience. Another key aspect of detachment is refusing to immediately act on emotional impulses. Feelings often demand expression. Anger wants confrontation. Fear wants avoidance. Insecurity wants reassurance. Disappointment wants withdrawal. These impulses feel urgent, but they are rarely wise. Detachment allows you to pause before responding. That pause protects your values and long-term goals. Perspective also supports emotional distance. When you remind yourself that emotions are influenced by fatigue, hunger, stress, and context, you stop treating them as absolute truths. You see them as signals rather than verdicts. You interpret them with curiosity instead of obedience. Mental imagery can further strengthen detachment. Visualizing emotions as waves, clouds, weather patterns, or passing traffic reinforces their temporary nature. You are the sky. Feelings are the weather. They come and go. They do not define the space in which they appear. Detachment also involves reducing unnecessary emotional investment. Many people attach intense emotional meaning to outcomes they cannot fully control. They tie their self-worth to approval, results, or expectations. When these outcomes fluctuate, their emotional state collapses. Learning to care without clinging protects inner stability. You remain committed without becoming dependent. Over time, practicing detachment builds emotional resilience. You become less reactive. You recover faster. You maintain composure in difficult conversations. You remain centered in uncertain situations. You stop being hijacked by momentary feelings. This does not make you cold. It makes you grounded. It does not reduce empathy. It strengthens discernment. You feel deeply, but you respond wisely. Once this skill is developed, the next step is learning how to actively regulate emotions and restore calm when intensity rises. That is what we will explore in the next chapter. Chapter 4: Regulation Tools. Awareness and detachment create space between you and your emotions, but space alone is not always enough. When emotional intensity is high, the nervous system needs active support to return to balance. Regulation tools are practical methods that help stabilize your internal state. They do not suppress emotion, they guide it back toward equilibrium. One of the most effective regulation tools is conscious breathing. Under stress, breathing becomes shallow and rapid, which signals danger to the brain. This keeps the body in alert mode. Slow, deep breathing reverses this signal. It activates the parasympathetic nervous system, which is responsible for calm and recovery. Lengthening your exhale, breathing through the nose, and allowing the belly to expand sends a message of safety. Within minutes, emotional intensity begins to decrease. Posture and physical alignment also influence emotional state. When you are tense, slouched, or collapsed, your body reinforces helplessness and fatigue. Standing or sitting upright with relaxed shoulders and steady balance improves confidence and emotional regulation. Physical stability supports psychological stability. Simple adjustments in how you hold yourself can shift your mood significantly. Attention control is another essential tool. Emotional distress narrows focus toward threats, mistakes, and imagined dangers. Redirecting attention to neutral or constructive objects weakens emotional amplification. This might involve focusing on sensory details, engaging in a simple task, observing your surroundings, or grounding yourself in the present moment. Attention is the fuel of emotion. Where it goes, intensity follows. Cognitive reframing helps restore perspective. Under emotional strain, thoughts become extreme and rigid. You may think in terms of always, never, ruin, failed, or hopeless. Reframing involves questioning these interpretations and replacing them with balanced alternatives. Instead of, "This is a disaster," you might think, "This is difficult, but manageable." Instead of, "I cannot handle this," you might think, "I am learning to respond better." These shifts reduce emotional pressure without denying reality. Environmental regulation is often overlooked. Noise, clutter, lighting, temperature, and digital overload influence emotional stability. A chaotic environment increases nervous system activation. Creating clean, quiet, organized spaces supports calm. Taking short breaks in nature, sunlight, or silence helps reset internal rhythms. Your surroundings communicate constantly with your nervous system. Movement and physical release are powerful regulators. Emotions generate physical energy. If that energy is not discharged, it accumulates as tension. Walking, stretching, exercising, or even shaking out the body helps release stored stress. Movement restores flow. It signals to the brain that action has been taken and danger has passed. Another important tool is emotional labeling. Naming what you feel reduces its intensity. Saying to yourself, I am feeling anxious, I am feeling frustrated, or I am feeling overwhelmed engages rational processing and decreases emotional reactivity. Labeling brings clarity. It transforms vague distress into something understandable and manageable. Routine and predictability also support regulation. When your days have structure, your nervous system relaxes. Consistent sleep, regular meals, scheduled breaks, and clear priorities reduce background anxiety. Chaos drains emotional resources. Order restores them. Over time, these tools become automatic. You no longer wait until emotions overwhelm you. You notice early signals and respond quickly. You breathe. You adjust posture. You shift attention. You reframe. You move. You simplify. You stabilize. This is how emotionally resilient people operate. They do not avoid stress. They manage it skillfully. They do not deny emotion. They guide it wisely. They do not depend on perfect conditions. They create internal balance regardless of circumstances. Once these tools are integrated, the final step is learning how to embody emotional stability in daily life and become a source of calm for yourself and others. Chapter 5. Emotional Leadership. True emotional control is not only about managing your inner state, it is about how your stability influences the world around you. Every environment contains emotional signals. Stress spreads, panic spreads, calm spreads as well. When you regulate yourself effectively, you become a stabilizing presence. Others feel safer, clearer, and more focused in your presence, often without realizing why. Emotional leadership begins with self-responsibility. Instead of blaming circumstances, people, or pressure for your reactions, you recognize that your internal state is your responsibility. This does not mean ignoring external problems. It means choosing how you meet them. When you take ownership of your emotions, you stop being controlled by them. In difficult situations, most people unconsciously look for cues about how to react. They watch tone, posture, pace of speech, and facial expressions. If you appear tense, rushed, or defensive, others become anxious. If you remain steady, attentive, and composed, tension decreases. Your emotional state becomes a form of communication. This is why calm individuals are often perceived as confident and competent. They do not need to dominate conversations. They do not rush to prove themselves. They listen carefully. They speak deliberately. They respond rather than react. Their presence creates psychological safety. People trust them because they are predictable in the best way. Emotional leadership also involves regulating reactions during conflict. Disagreements are unavoidable. Pressure is unavoidable. Frustration is unavoidable. What distinguishes emotionally mature individuals is not the absence of these experiences, but how they navigate them. They do not escalate. They do not personalize unnecessarily. They focus on resolution rather than victory. They maintain respect even when they disagree strongly. Another aspect of emotional leadership is modeling recovery. Everyone loses composure at times. Everyone experiences emotional overload occasionally. What matters is how quickly and gracefully you return to balance. When you acknowledge mistakes, recalibrate, and move forward without defensiveness, you demonstrate resilience. This teaches others that emotional regulation is a skill, not perfection. Consistency is essential. Emotional leadership is built through repeated calm responses over time. One composed moment does not establish trust. A pattern of stability does. When people see that you remain grounded across different situations, they begin to rely on your presence. Your reliability becomes a quiet form of authority. This leadership, applies not only to professional environments, but also to families, friendships, and personal relationships. Children learn emotional regulation by observing adults. Partners feel secure when responses are predictable and respectful. Friends trust those who do not create unnecessary drama. Your emotional habits shape your social environment. Emotional leadership also strengthens your relationship with yourself. When you consistently respond with patience, clarity, and self-respect, your self-confidence grows. You stop fearing your own reactions. You trust yourself under pressure. This internal trust is the foundation of psychological freedom. Over time, emotional mastery becomes part of your identity. You no longer think of yourself as someone who struggles with reactions. You see yourself as someone who handles intensity with wisdom. Challenges become opportunities to practice stability. Stress becomes a signal to return to balance. Pressure becomes a context for growth. This is the long-term outcome of emotional control, not emotional suppression, not emotional avoidance, but emotional leadership. Emotional control is not about becoming unaffected by life. It is about becoming grounded within it. Pressure, conflict, uncertainty, and disappointment will always exist. What changes is how you meet them. Instead of reacting automatically, you respond consciously. Instead of being overwhelmed, you remain centered. Instead of losing clarity, you return to it. Throughout this audiobook, you have learned that emotions are signals, not commands. You have learned how triggers activate internal systems, how pressure narrows perception, how detachment creates distance, how regulation restores balance, and how emotional leadership shapes your environment. These are not abstract ideas. They are practical skills that can be practiced daily. Each moment of awareness strengthens self-trust. Each calm response reinforces confidence. Each intentional pause protects your long-term goals. Over time, these small choices reshape your identity. You no longer see yourself as reactive or unstable. You see yourself as steady, capable, and emotionally intelligent. There will still be difficult days. There will still be moments of frustration, fear, and uncertainty. That is part of growth. What matters is that you now have tools. You know how to recognize overload. You know how to regulate your nervous system. You know how to create space between feeling and action. You know how to return to clarity. This is what it means to be unshakable, not perfect, not emotionless, but resilient, aware, and grounded. As you move forward, practice these principles gently. Do not demand instant mastery. Progress comes through consistency, not pressure. Every time you choose calm over chaos, you strengthen your inner foundation. Every time you respond with clarity, you build lasting confidence. Thank you for taking this time to invest in your emotional growth. This commitment to self-understanding is one of the most valuable investments you can make. If you found this audiobook helpful, please consider liking this video and sharing it with someone who may benefit from emotional clarity and calm. Your support allows us to continue creating high-quality audiobooks focused on real personal development. You are also invited to leave a comment and share what situations challenge your emotional control the most. Your experiences help guide future projects and shape this community. Until then, take care of your inner world. It shapes everything you create.